here we go. This is time and place for a city commission meeting for Huron, South Dakota, Monday, August 30th, 2021. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Here.
Weinreich.
Here.
Bragg.
Here.
Robish.
Present.
Mayor Harrington.
Present. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda approval. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
I got one.
All right, Nathan Hofer, our HR director, what do we have?
So it's just a addition to the consent agenda. I think it'll be 4.6 on there, what we looked like. It would be to recommend the hiring of Logan Rietveld to the volunteer fire department effective today.
Okay, give me that. All right, do we have any other adjustments to our agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Commissioner
Second.
Smith, motion approved. Commissioner Weinreich, second. A roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Public forum. Public comments may be sent during a live meeting broadcast on the city's YouTube channel. The link is listed on the city's website at www.huronSD.com/citygovernment. In order to use the YouTube chat feature, please create an account with your YouTube and Gmail or use your existing accounts. Please state your name and address for the record. Public forum is limited to a maximum of 3 minutes per person. Do we have any public forum tonight? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have HR Director Nathan Hofer on the computer at the back of the room. If you want to email in a question, he would stop us and we'll try to answer your question for you tonight. Number 4, consent agenda. Matters appearing on the consent agenda are expected to be non-controversial and be acted upon by commission at one time without discussion. Unless a member of the commission requests an opportunity to address any given item. Items removed from the consent agenda will be discussed at the beginning of the formal items. 4.1, minutes of the August 23rd, 2021 City Commission. 4.2, fuel quotes for city departments. 4.3, personnel items. Termination of seasonal employees. 4.4, reappointment of Jeff McGurr to the Mid-Dakota Rural Water System Board of Directors to serve an additional 3-year term. 4.5, payment of the bills. 4.6, recommend the hiring of Logan Rietveld to the Volunteer Fire Department effective 8/3/2021.
I would move to approve the consent agenda, although I was hoping to hear you read all of the seasonal employees. Usually you read those, but I guess we'll let it slide this time.
Thank you so much. I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Smith. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Bid quote items. 5.1, we have our city engineer, Brett Runge, here tonight to assist us in discussing 5.1.
Thank you, Mayor. 5.1, consider payment request number 4 by Top Grade Concrete LLC for bid number 2021-02 concrete replacement in the amount of $49,934.05. This is our concrete replacement job that's going on around town with various curb and gutter replacement, some sidewalk replacement, and some handicap ramps at corners. This is just a standard pay request. They are not in town currently. They will be back in Huron in about a week to move down to the 3rd Street Dam. And they're going to pour the concrete that goes down to the 3rd Street Dam and along both sides, both the east and west side of the 3rd Street Dam. So about a week or so from now they'll be back. And then after 3rd Street Dam, then they'll move up by Prostrello's there. And we've got some additional curb and gutter that we're putting in there, actually more of a drainage channel through there. So we recommend payment. They're on schedule and should be able to complete on time. So we recommend payment for this pay request.
Entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Weimers, motion to approve. Second.
Second?
Second, Commissioner Smith. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Wainwright.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. 5.2, City Engineer Rengie, would you explain what 5.2 is?
Thank you, Mayor. 5.2, consider construction change order number 1 by Menning Excavating, Inc. for bid number 2021-03 Vantage Business Park sanitary sewer construction for a net increase of $151,098. This is an ugly one. We're trying to bore underneath the railroad tracks out by Custer Avenue on the east side of town. And in our first attempts to bore the 24-inch casing pipe, they encountered stones or obstructions. We're assuming they're stones based on the spoil material that came out of the boring pit that they dug. These vary anywhere from 1 foot in diameter to 3 foot in diameter. They're large rocks out there, and it's apparently we can't even get through with a 4-inch pilot hole without hitting one of these and steering us off course or stopping the bore rig. So we've tried several times and realized that that wasn't working. There's a cost of like $13,200 to bore to go back into the railroad and dig up each obstruction. Plus the railroad will only allow you to do that on a very limited basis. You have to bore underneath. So we're kind of stuck in a bad spot here. We have to get from point A to point B across the railroad. You can't go over the railroad. You can't go around the railroad. We have to go underneath it. So what we've come up with, the best alternative at this point, is with the boring company, who are professionals. I mean, they do a lot of boring work for just the railroad, not just for communities like ourselves. So they've worked through this with us. The best option they believe is to increase to a 48-inch diameter casing on this bore. And that way, when they hit these obstructions, they can go into the casing pipe and remove them from the inside. And I'm assuming they'll have some sort of a trolley type system, remove them, knock them down, and then drag them out, right? And keep moving forward with the bore. And then we'll put our 24-inch casing inside that 48-inch. It's boring underneath the railroad tracks. This is kind of like why we had the discussion, why we didn't want to bore underneath some of those county roads, because you just don't know what you're going to run into when you're doing these bores. So it's an ugly thing. Of that $151,000 additional cost, we are confident we can cut a little bit down from that yet, because we're doing with this 48-inch diameter pipe. I don't think we'll need to use the bore obstruction pay item anymore, so that would save another $13,200. If we can get the boring going here, we should not have to use the demobilization, the temporary demobilization and remobilization, which is another $18,000 on this change order. We at this time we don't plan to fill the annular space around the bore, the 48-inch diameter pipe. We don't plan to fill that interior space around the 24-inch pipe, which should save another $16,800. So in the end, I think we can get this change order down to $100,000, or just a little above $100,000. But we had to include these items in the change order right now because the railroad is currently reviewing the change of what we're trying to make, and we're not sure what they're going to dictate to some degree, and we're not exactly sure what we're going to find when we try this next bore with the larger diameter. So that's why some of those items are included right now, but confident that we can hold that back. So we recommend approval of this change order. It's something that we worked through last week, and we believe it's the best way to move forward and get through the railroad.
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Bragg, motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Weinrich. Any discussion on this?
So, Mayor, if I may,
You may.
did I understand you correctly then? So we're going with a 48-inch casing, and we're gonna put a 24-inch pipe through there, right? I mean, that's the concept. What did you say as far as the gap between that casing and the pipe? How is that gonna be backfilled, or was not?
Yep, so what they'll do on inside the 48-inch pipe, they'll do the 24-inch casing, which
Right.
is steel pipe that can support itself, but it's gonna be sitting on a rail system inside the 48-inch. They have a rail system that it sits on and holds it in place.
Okay,
And then inside that 24-inch pipe is our actual sewer pipe, which is only 16-inch diameter right there. And that has all around it, every 10 feet or so, that has little spacers that hold it in place inside that 24-inch casing pipe. There is a possibility that the railroad will require us to fill the inside of that 48-inch diameter pipe with grout to kind of seal up and hold up around that 24-inch casing pipe. We don't know that yet, for sure.
yeah, I guess that's what, it would seem to me, anytime you have air pockets, that's a concern that it's gonna collapse.
Yeah.
Or wash out.
The railroad's requirement is that the casing pipe has to be large enough to support itself, though. So we're meeting the railroad's requirement for the thickness of steel.
Okay,
So that thickness is almost an inch thick, the pipe, the casing itself. So it is able to support itself with nothing inside of it. Similar, I know by Sioux Falls, they just did, I think it was last year, some 84-inch casings like this
Wow.
bored through. And so it's just, as you get bigger pipe, you have to go larger thickness. They went under the interstate. But you have to get thicker material, and it's supposed to be self-supporting. It would be the idea of the concept. The deeper you go, the more that those surface loads are spread out. We always look at bearing at a 45-degree angle, and as you go deeper and deeper, you're spreading that load over a larger and larger area, so it's less loading. But at some point, too, as you go deeper, there's also just the weight of soil above it that's there too, right? So they're offsetting each other some, but
so how deep is the bore?
at the center of the railroad tracks to the top of our pipe, it's about 14 foot.
Okay,
So,
yeah, I don't need to get into the
yeah.
engineering perspective, I'm just trying to understand the air gap, if you would, in between the pipes.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we were doing a 24-inch bore. With the 48-inch bore, it's going to be centered on the original bore, so we're only a foot shallower with the bore, as in it's only a foot closer to the surface, and a foot deeper, obviously. But it's not like we're all of a sudden going to get higher, closer to the surface necessarily either. One thing I didn't mention that's in the memo is that with this change order, we are still technically under budget for this project. We had very good bids on this project in the end here, and then the city went out and procured pipe for this project, which I also think saved a lot of cost, was a good move that we did. And so we had like 1.7 million budgeted for the job, and with engineering and everything else, we were 300,000 below budget. Now we would be 150,000 below budget. At this particular point, they have installed the sewer pipe out to Custer, and now we're crossing the railroad tracks, and then we're gonna cross Custer Avenue next, and then move up the bean field that's out there, Vantage Business Park. And I wouldn't anticipate that's open cut. Hopefully there would be nothing. Hopefully there won't be too many other things to come in on that difference in what we've have budgeted, you know, as far as change orders. Hopefully we're sitting in a good spot. It's pretty straightforward from here on out, once we get the board complete.
How deep is it under Custer?
Under Custer Avenue, Custer is about the same depth as the railroad tracks, so it would be about 14 foot still. It'd be, yep, because it won't have the casing pipe, so, yeah, but it's due, yep.
So assuming we pass this tonight, when did you expect them to start doing something out there with it?
They were on site today. They're supposed to be, they're looking, because we talked about emergency to keep things moving, because they want to charge us $11,000 a day to be for standby costs, right? So there was phone calls last week to the commission for some emergency movement on this. And so with that, they are hauling the 48-inch pipe onto the site today. And they were looking at adjusting their bore pit for the larger diameter bore at this point. They're hoping they can get started boring tomorrow.
Has the railroad approved it?
Not yet. That's the other
Well,
hang
we
up they're
never
waiting
know.
on. They said that they expected to provide approval on Friday last week. We did not hear anything. We tried contacting them and did not get anything back. We haven't heard anything today yet from the railroad. We tried contacting them and no response. We hope to hear from them tomorrow. That's the other frustrating part of this, is you can't just meet with them or get together with them and they have their systems and they're busy and difficult, notoriously difficult to get a hold of and to make adjustments.
They better be careful, they eat up your $150,000 that you got.
That's right.
You won't be bragging about that next time.
Nope.
Any other questions? Good enough. Roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Thanks, Brett. All right, moving on to petitions and communications. Pauline, you will explain 6.1.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is just a transfer of a beer license, malt beverage South Dakota wine license from a new owner for Panda Garden. Their paperwork was all in order and we received no comments, so we recommend approval.
Okay, we have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second. Commissioner Smith, motion to approve. Second, Commissioner Robish. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinrich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Pauline, our financial officer, we'll go back to it, 6.2.
That would be our city engineer.
That's what I said.
Good, but not
6.2.
that good.
Why did I put your name down? I was trying to keep Brett.
6.2, consider agreement for professional services with Infrastructure Design Group, Inc. for the 3rd Street Bridge Preservation Project and authorize the mayor to sign. So, back in 2019, 2020, we applied for a bridge improvement grant. They call them the big grants, right? And we received a grant there to do an epoxy deck seal on the 3rd Street Bridge, and then to do mud jacking on the approach slabs. And that is, we received the grant in the amount of $142,000, and Infrastructure Design Group has actually already put those plans together. They're shelved right now. We're ready to bid that portion. But when we got ready to bid that, the floodwaters of the James River had receded, and we seen what was left, and it caused erosion around the abutments. And now we needed to do something with the abutments of that. So we decided that we should combine those two projects together, bid them together, that work together. So we applied for another big grant, another bridge improvement grant, and we were awarded another $171,220 for sheet piling and riprap for bank stabilization. And these are 80-20 match grants, so that's what we're awarded. We're still responsible for the 20% that's over and above this. So at this point, we need to do the design on the riprap and the sheet piling, and then this also includes the construction admin. So Infrastructure Design Group, they're proposing a design agreement for that bank stabilization design and for the construction admin services for in the amount of $63,510.70. And that'd be an 80-20 match. That's their contract, so we would be responsible for 20% of that fee. We're recommending approval. They did the original design for the epoxy deck seal, so we're gonna bid this when it's done. It'll be bid this winter, and the work will occur next year in 2020. So we're recommending approval of this and authorization for the mayor to sign.
Need a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Weimers, move to approve. Need a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Smith. Any more discussion on this item?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Smith.
So Brett, the Third Street Bridge, that's the city's responsibility
Correct.
to maintain and improve that area?
Yep, that is our only bridge that we're responsible for. There are some box culverts that we're also responsible, that we have every 3 years. We have to do an inspection per the state requirements. But that's the only bridge that the city is responsible for.
That was gonna be my follow-up question, not sure on 21st Street or the state highway for that matter, US highway.
Yep, the DOT would be responsible for like Highway 14 and, yep, so.
Thanks.
Any other discussion for Brett? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Craig.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Okay. 6.3, now I think I have pulled in on this one. Okay?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We have the agreement now with the new federal funds coming with the coronavirus recovery funds. We have two things we need the mayor to sign. One is saying we'll accept funds through the treasury, giving them our account numbers and our DUNS number. The other one is the terms and conditions of the monies. State is not ready to give us the money. We're at like 2.3 million. We'll get 2 tranches, one this year and one next year or the year after, depending on our projects, to be used for infrastructure. So I ask for approval and authorize the mayor to sign.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Commissioner Smith, need a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bragg. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. 6.4, City Attorney Tucker Valesky, would you quote this one for us, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. 6.4 is to authorize the mayor to sign a mutual full and final settlement and release agreement. This is in regard to the Staley versus City of Huron lawsuit. It was in litigation. We went to mediation, and we finally now have reached a settlement. This will settle the claim and resolve the matter. So, recommend approval.
Need a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Mr. Weimers, move to approve. Need a second.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, a second. Discussion on this item. Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Weinreich.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. All right, ordinances and resolutions, 7.1. Tucker, would you go over that one for us, please?
Yes, Mayor, 7.1 is the public hearing and second reading of ordinance number 2229-23-405 pertaining to zoning, home occupation permits, administration and enforcement, and non-conforming uses and structures.
Okay. A motion to approve.
So moved.
Commissioner Bragg, motion to approve. Need a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Weinrich. Any discussion on this item? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Aye.
Weinreich,
Aye.
Bragg,
Aye.
Robish,
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. 7.2, Tucker, would you leave that, let us know what that one's about?
Yes, 7.2 is the first reading of ordinance number 2226-23-404 pertaining to zoning, medical cannabis regulations, and consider the public hearing, second reading for September 13th.
Need a motion?
Move to approve first reading?
Mr. Weinrich, motion to approve. Need a second.
Second?
Mr. Smith with a second. Any discussion on this topic?
Mayor, I have some things I'd like to.
City planner,
Yes.
Gary Cranston.
Okay, so this version that you have in your packet is slightly different than what you saw at the work session last Monday. So, this version, actually, it struck out a couple of items that we had in that initial draft. It removed the prohibition against a mixed-use building, and this was based on input from the planning commission from Wednesday night. That was subsequent to your meeting, obviously, on Monday. And what the idea behind that was that, you know, we have bars in town that have apartments above.
Do you have copies of the new
Oh.
one?
Yes, I did bring some copies
Okay,
in
let
there.
me
They're
grab-
right on the table.
Let me grab them.
Yes. What's in your packet is what I'm talking about, so, for those of you who have the electronic copy.
Right?
All of the changes are in the packet.
No, the changes are included in the packet version.
Oh, I thought you were making changes.
Well,
to
there are two small,
Okay, so that has to be.
right, we'll
version.
have to amend this version tonight. There are two small changes that I want to make.
Thank you, Paul.
So basically, this version that is in your packet today eliminated that prohibition against the mixed-use facility. Because the planning commission felt we have bars in town that have apartments above. So what is really the difference if you have a dispensary on the main floor? So long as you meet the state's requirement for single access, then we shouldn't have to really eliminate, or we shouldn't have to monitor, you know, if there's an apartment upstairs. Again, the state has regulations as to, you know, available access, and they can't have access to the downstairs anyway. The other thing this version did that's different from your Monday night version is that this version eliminates the hours of operation. And there's mixed feelings about that on both the planning commission and from some of the staff, in that, you know, we do regulate liquor and bars for hours of operation. This version does not do that. So if we want to do that, then we need to amend this version prior to your passage tonight. Originally, it was
Sure,
eight.
go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
What was the discussion and why there was no regulation?
They felt that basically the consensus of the group is they did not want to really interfere with the business's decision on when to be open. That was about it. So it wasn't, and I wouldn't say that was a strong opinion, but it was about a mix in the room of whether or not that was a good idea. So, in the end, the majority consensus was to eliminate the hours of operation restriction. Now, if we wanna change that, we can do that tonight. I don't think anybody would argue the point that, you know, we regulate bars and restaurants and everything else, so I don't think anybody'd have a strong feeling against that.
But it wasn't as strong in favor of not.
No.
So
No.
why the swing?
I mean, that was the consensus, the majority of the planning, the joint planning commission felt that that we should take it out.
So what you had proposed, what, from 8 AM to
8,
8 PM?
Yeah,
Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, and actually, I think we had Monday through Saturday. And then closed Sundays and closed state and federal holidays. Was in the original version, I think. That you guys had seen Monday night.
Which I think is what the county pretty much had.
Right, the counties is 8 to 8. The other thing this version did is it struck out the language that said that we would not allow testing facilities, cultivation facilities, and manufacturing facilities in town. We had prohibited those uses within city limits. And we struck that out of this version. So now, there are basically 4 establishments. There's the dispensary, the cultivation facility, the manufacturing facility, and the testing facility. And those are now all allowable uses through the conditional use process within the B2, B3, and industrial zones. So, now that's kind of what's changed. Now I'm going to recommend that we make some minor changes again. If you go back to 2311-070, which would be the 3rd page of the ordinance, you'll see under required permits there, it's the 3rd one from the top. If you go down to number 1, under that it says that the zoning and building official are hereby authorized to issue permits for the construction of a cannabis dispensary subject to the following. And number 1 says submission of a site plan containing the following. We want to change that to approval of a site plan, because this body has to approve it before we can issue a permit. And it's just a technical change as far as the language. And then down below, in number 4 in that same section, at the very end of that last sentence, I want to add the International Existing Building Code. When I wrote this, I was unaware that that existed. So I thought it was just all one, and it is not. So, those are the 2 things I wanted to add. Backing up, I apologize. One of the things that the planning commission recommended changing was the amount of permits. So this version calls for 4 within city limits, 4 dispensary licenses within city limits, and 2 to be added in the joint jurisdiction. So that would be a 6 total, with the idea that probably the recommendation will come out this week for the county commission to add an additional 2 outside of the joint jurisdiction area.
So where is the joint jurisdiction over here?
Joint jurisdiction, it shows up in,
83
yeah, 83 at the
in the packet.
234610. So it's on the 4th page. So that is already included in the packet. I forgot to point that out earlier. So we wanted to clean up the language in that 2311-070 section. to include the approval in the international existing building code, just to clarify the language. Otherwise, those are the changes. So I would recommend approval of this document with those amendments.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Right.
I'll amend my motion and add in the two recommendations from the city planner.
Do you wanna talk about the other three things first,
Yeah,
before you make those amendments?
What
Hours of operation,
Whether the striking of the hours of operation, the mixed-use building,
yeah,
and the striking of the language prohibiting the cultivation, testing, and manufacturing facilities within city limits.
I agree with those three changes.
So, by prohibiting by eliminating the hours, or 24 hours a day,
They could be, yes, that is correct.
7 days a week, 5 days a week.
Could be, yes, that's correct. So that one was probably the most, there were people on both sides of that. And it really came down to just whether or not, in the planning commission's mind, whether or not we should over-regulate their business hours. And the majority said they'd really like to take that out, and so I wasn't sure that'd fly by this commission or not, honestly, but that's what they wanted, so.
I think if it was recreational, I would be a little bit more concerned on us limiting the hours of operation. It says, people, medicinal, medication purposes. I don't see what would be a purpose of us restricting businesses' choice of hour of operation.
That was my first thought there, Commissioner. But then I think, and we don't regulate them, but then I think back of how many pharmacies are open 24/7.
And that's their choice of
I
hours.
have-
And these
that's what I'm
guys will
saying.
do
We
the
don't
same. They'll
restrict them.
choose which hours. But it'd be kind of like, back in the day when you couldn't buy liquor on Sunday. What's the purpose of us restricting it?
That's a long discussion.
Yeah.
Well, I think that would be, the comment I would have would be, I think 8 to 8 and not going on Sunday is a far cry from no hours at all. And, right or wrong, all of us have had the habit of comparing this to liquor, and maybe that's not the right way to do it, but, we have often said, well, this is the way the liquor license is. I do wonder if 8 to 8, no sales on Sunday might be too restrictive, but maybe we could adopt some hours more similar to what the liquor establishments have to abide by, so at least we still have some guidelines. Now, that still may not limit it as much as some want, and might limit it too much for others, but that might be a compromise. So at least it's not wide open, but.
That's why, that was my initial thought on that question I asked you, were there were there thoughts of comparisons there? Is why that was swayed.
It's the most outspoken person stance on this was just over-regulation of business. I mean, that's really where they came down to.
I got it.
So it wasn't, and honestly, I don't think if you sat down with him and asked him that question today, I don't think he'd dig in on one side or the other of that conversation. I think that's just how he happened to feel at the moment.
Right.
He's a business person in town here.
So I don't have any problems doing 8 to 8, including Saturday, off on Sunday and federal holidays. I'm the opposite of what Commissioner Weiners is thinking. I'm thinking that we start out this way, when recreation, if and when recreation comes, then we can take a look at a full blown. I just soon start with something here with this, start with the hours, and then see how they go. See how much problems it is for our police department, stuff like that. Because if they're gonna think the building's over, they're gonna knock these buildings over, just like they do with the regular lottery buildings, so. I just think, I don't look at it as over-regulation, it's a brand-new industry. So why don't we set some limits on it to begin with, and then we always can change them. But right now, we don't know what even the state's gonna recommend. You know, but we've gotta get something put into ours so that we can present it, so we have it, we're doing a first reading of it. I just think that, you know, I don't know, that's my thought, but go ahead.
What is for liquor right now, what are the actual requirements at this point for establishments that sell alcohol? Because there's no longer a Sunday,
What's that?
there's no longer a Sunday prohibition on.
Right,
that's on
all
the
on
sale.
Sundays on an off sale, yeah. And, 2 AM,
6 AM to 2 AM.
6 AM to 2 AM.
For on sale,
Mhm.
off sale has been removed.
Their requirements are 2 AM
They
to,
can't sell
they
liquor
can't sell
after
after
2
2 AM. Off
Anywhere.
sale or on sale.
So, I mean, Mr. Mayor, are you comfortable if we
Sunday
use
was
6 to 2
Sunday.
instead of the
No,
8 to 8?
I'm not.
Got it. Yeah.
I think 8 to 8, and like I say, it's a brand-new industry in our state, in our community. And from recreation comes full blast, I can fully understand saying, okay, now it's good for everybody. My point is, like Commissioner was trying to make, was our clinic, our pharmacies aren't open. I mean, if these people are using this for medical purposes only, which this is what it's supposed to be, I would think that they would probably have their marijuana and what they need before noon or midnight. If they don't, they're not a very good person of their medical needs. I mean, if you've got to get medical stuff to maintain your life, you don't just say, well, I think I'll do it at noon, or I think I'll do it at midnight. Or, no, you plan ahead. If it's 8 to 8, you plan ahead. 8 o'clock, I gotta have my stuff before 8. This gives, if somebody's working, it gives both ends. The ones that gets out, that works early in the morning, and the one that works later at night. He can get his stuff.
I
First
think
time.
the 8 PM is a little restrictive. I'm more in line of a little bit later than 8 PM. That seems pretty early to make a business close their doors, I think, is my opinion.
So what would your thought be on that, Drew?
I would be more open to the same that we use with the liquor license versus the 8 to 8. I think that's a little too restrictive. If we are gonna put an hour limitation, I would be more in favor of the 6 to 2, or even midnight. But, and the thing is, they may not be open, that's for the business to decide. And we're talking about the pharmacies, we don't tell Lewis what time they have to open and close, that's for the business to decide. So if we are wanting to do it, then I would be a little bit more apprehensive to say 8 PM would be, that's before dark. That's my opinion.
And for me personally, I think the Sunday might be the more, that's the piece that I would, like you said, Mr. Mayor, you could make the argument that you could plan ahead but, to take one whole day of the week out, arbitrarily, I don't know necessarily that I would be in favor of that one as much, I mean, if maybe if we had some comment from the police force, because if there's some concerns, we as a city need to take that into account for sure,
So you wanna hear about it?
Well, and before you get there, Kevin, just to kind of stay marching on the same line. How is this, I mean, for the dispensaries that we're dealing with, that has to be by prescription, correct? And is it a requirement for those dispensaries to keep record to follow those that prescription protocol?
Yes.
As part of the medical
Yeah,
Yeah,
prescription?
the Department of Health is really gonna be,
database.
involved with that.
So if I was prescribed X,
Mhm.
I couldn't go to
Here and.
your dispensary and then
Right.
go down the street to this dispensary in the same day kind of a thing. There is an actual
There is a
book
database
of
that
record.
would be, it's all gonna be according to what they're saying in here, is gonna be, you know, hooked up to the state system.
So
So,
I think where I keep going with it is I start mixing, okay, recreational outlets tied into this, so.
well, this'll be much more regulated.
Right. I think our bigger challenge is gonna come with the recreational dispensary.
So your comment about going from one to the next, according to the state statute, the way it's written, that I understand it, is there is no limit on how many places they can go to. So Commissioner Robish had one, and Commissioner Smith had one, Commissioner Weinreich had one. I'm gonna go buy some from him, and him, and him. There's no limit on that. A good example is I hobble up here, everybody sees that I had this done. I have prescription drugs. And I know when I need that stuff. It's not anything special. The problem when you go to the late night hours, like the mayor said, is when we have officers who are out checking businesses at night, they're not gonna have to worry about a dispensary that's gonna have a lot of cash on hand. So we're gonna have to take an officer and focus on this, and we should be protecting the rest of the city. We have that with alcohol establishments, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we have at least one a week usually that we're out there trying to kick people out the door because they stay in. So now we're cutting it shorter. Perfect example would be if we need to add more officers, because it's gonna be a whole new game out there. I don't think there's anybody that goes to, even if Coborn's or Walmart or any of the pharmacies are open at night, you might get 1 or 2 people in there that need a prescription. I think midnight's a little late. I could see 8 or 10 o'clock. A reasonable person would be off work. Most of the people that use this, they can't drive after they use it because they'll be impaired. So they're not gonna be out cruising town. This morning we had a conversation about the cost of medical marijuana in Flandreux. Their highest price thing is $35. If you're buying a gram of marijuana from their dispensary, I will tell you that it's cheaper to buy it on the street. So to say that they need to be open all night, they're gonna buy their marijuana on the street for about 1/3 of the price. An ounce of marijuana is going for about $180 right now. If you buy it by the gram, it's $700 an ounce. And these people can find it whenever they want. Marijuana is everywhere right now. So the people that get the marijuana card, I think we were talking this morning, there's 6,000 in the state of Iowa. 6,000 people out of 3 million that have an actual card. These people aren't gonna go out and get a card. You're gonna get about 50 people maybe in Field County to get a card. So now you're gonna hold the business open all night. And I agree that they can make that choice if they're gonna make money. They're not gonna be open all night long.
But we could have 4 dispensaries in
Yeah.
the city here.
Yeah, my concern is if you keep them open all night, and they should make a decision themselves, but we're gonna have people going bankrupt because of this. It costs them all this money. And if we restrict their hours a little bit, okay, we're restricting, they're not gonna make that much money after 8 or 10 at night. So in a way, it would be protecting the people. But to not plan ahead, I think is a problem that they have on their own. It'd be like saying we've got an alcoholic and we're gonna let them be open all night long and sell their booze just to feed the alcoholic. If
State
the
of
person needs medicine, they will have their medicine. They're not gonna buy a gram, they can buy up to 3 ounces, I believe. I mean, you walk in and buy 3 ounces of marijuana, you're not smoking that in one day. You can buy a package of gummies, you're not gonna use it all in one day. The next day, you're gonna have ample opportunity any time of the day to go get your stuff. your medication.
The state of Iowa has two dispensaries in the whole state. 2. And they don't allow smoking. It's all gummies, it's all oil, it's all that. And I wish the state of South Dakota had done that. Would have made our situation a whole lot easier.
A way to look at the ordinance, and, you know, I review state laws and stuff, it's a lot easier to be restrictive in the beginning. You can always change this
Yeah,
ordinance.
exactly.
But it's a lot tougher to make it stricter down the road. If you say we're gonna be open all night, and you come back to say, now we're gonna do it until 8 o'clock at night because there's problems, you're gonna have a whole lot more problems. It's easier to be more restrictive in the beginning and lighten it up once you see what's going on. So, I mean, the commission can review this at any time. change the ordinance. If you say, okay, there's a lot of people getting it, you know, or complaining they need it at 10 o'clock at night, you can always change it. I just don't think that being a free-for-all is the right answer. And that's what it would be doing if you went all night.
And we're trying to be careful not to compare it to alcohol, but that's what we're doing. So we gotta separate these.
And whatever you as a commission decides, that's what we'll enforce. We always say, we don't pass the laws, we just enforce the laws. So whatever you decide is the rules that we'll follow.
We appreciate that. Thanks, Kevin.
So these dispensaries have to have a licensed pharmacist?
No,
They do not have to.
no. There is training that they'll have to go through. I mean, because the administrative rules, you know, there's 105 pages of them, you know. I can give you a copy of what you wanna read.
Thank you.
But it's gonna be a very meticulous process for anybody to go through to get one of these licenses, as far as from the state level.
And each and every one of their employees within.
Yes.
I mean, not only getting the license up front, the doors, the security, the lockout that they have to do with their facility, then each employee has to get a card from the state and go through separate training. I mean, it'll be well regulated from the state side
Mhm.
that way.
So, staying with the hour theme, I've got a few other questions.
Okay.
but, concerning the hours, the joint jurisdictional,
Mhm.
what were they recommending
They,
for passage?
the county representatives that were present had some concern about that, but they voted in favor. In fact, the chairman was on hand and he was there for it, and then there were two other representatives in the motion to approve this version, of course, without the two minor changes that we've made, was seconded by a county member. So we have, you know, it was pretty well represented, you know, that they were in support of, you know, they weren't all real happy with it, but they didn't wanna throw the good out for the perfect.
But what direction were they going with, the hour and the day
The
limitations?
county's ordinance, I have here, let me pull it up.
I guess what I'm trying to suggest, Barry, is, you know, that we don't have to be consistent with the county necessarily, but it'd be good to be similar page.
The
Certainly with
county's.
the joint, because the joint task force is different than what the county does. I mean, there's three
Right.
different
Right.
entities,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right there. Could very likely be,
Though
A
the county,
dispensary
Joint
across the
jurisdictional falls under the city.
yeah,
right.
the hours of operation that is being dictated by the county ordinance is 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
In the minutes, it says 8 to 8, Monday through Saturday.
For joint.
Oh, John.
Yeah, I'm saying the county's ordinance that's what it reads.
Oh, they're looking at changing it to 8 to 8.
Yeah, because some of these joint jurisdictional things came up, and so they'll have to go back through now and look at, you know, some of the things that we did internally as staff when we looked at the joint jurisdictional things, and they didn't frankly consider any of that when they did their ordinance. So Kim, I said, who's their planning and zoning person, will likely have to go back through now based on what we're doing and she'll have some minor changes for their ordinance.
And so that we have a first reading on whatever we decide on tonight, then there's public comment, right? So, I mean.
Yes, then there'll be a second reading.
Because you would expect, I mean, something like these hours might generate some public comment
Mhm.
just by the difference of opinion that we have here. I think the other one, you know, we talked about that map, you know, and with us doing the excluding sale near parks, which is an option, you know, not the schools one is not an option for the state,
Right.
but you may have some specific property owners that look at that map and say, I want to address my property in specific. But so we pass what we pass tonight, and then they'll have that chance to make that.
Yes, I mean, they can, you know, call all you guys, obviously, and then if there are any changes, correct me if I'm wrong, Paulina and I talked about this, then if there are changes again, we would schedule another public hearing,
You'd have
another
a public
first
hearing
reading.
Between, you'd have the changes,
Right,
and then you'd have a public hearing in between your second reading because of those changes. If there's any significant change made to an ordinance, you have to have a public hearing in between.
so that's why we wanted to, since we were proposing to make those minor language changes in this document, we had to have that on record as for first reading before you approved it.
And the second hearing would be scheduled according to the minimum distance between the first and the second, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's gonna be postponed because of public.
Just, a lot of times we do these first and second readings knowing that there'll almost zero chance anyone will say anything,
Right.
we just follow. But this one, there's enough difference of opinions here that we probably should plan on. There probably will be some pretty strong feedback on some of this.
We haven't heard anything so far, you know, Ben's had, stuff in the paper about the medical cannabis, and we've had one person, present at the joint planning commission meeting, and that was all that was present. We haven't received any feedback in the office, no emails, no inquiries, nothing.
I'm just, and I'll admit, it took me a couple of meetings when we talked about this, that this is medical only. And I was the most guilty in this party that didn't separate them, okay? But some questions that come up to me is, if this is prescription only, do we know, or has our licensed pharmacies in town, they don't want anything to do with this?
They can't,
They
Yeah.
cannot,
by state law.
if it's prescription drug.
No, it has to be prescribed by a licensed physician, but it is not a prescription drug.
You're just ahead of your time. Art.
Yeah.
Years down the road it will be, but right now, since this came in, the way it was passed by the voters,
Right.
it's gotta be its own deal.
And that's
Still
what,
federally illegal.
that's another
Yeah,
thing
like
that worries
Santa
me
Barbara,
is,
Monument, all those healthcare facilities
Yeah.
are not allowed, they're not.
and that's another thing that worries me, because it is not limited that way. There's high-paying jobs that can't even be filled right now.
Mhm.
And now this is not gonna be one of those high-paying jobs, because it's not a licensed pharmacist, it's just I can't go to the auto parts store and buy my prescriptions, but I can do this, as long as I got a card. I don't, okay, I'm still trying to separate, trying to build that wall,
Yeah,
and
it is a,
and it goes up very
mindset.
slow.
So going back to the time, I would be okay if we put a time on there. I do think we need to do the whole 7 days, to not include holidays in there, but I would be okay with, if we decided we wanna do an 8 to 8 or 8 to 10, but I would allow it to be sold on Sundays and holidays. Is my thought on it.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think no limitation on it in the beginning is based on, law enforcement's input and the newness of this. So I-
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, Brian. Can I ask a question, just because we have two folks that happen to work at our bank? Is the bank going to be dealing with anyone who is operating in this?
so the banks are working on regulation right now with the FDIC
Because
and the state.
that's a big issue in states that currently have legal medical cannabis.
I can
State
tell you
is
that
working on that with banks.
the state of Colorado actually had to charter their own cannabis
bank.
credit union.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so that's been a big thing as far
Yep.
as.
State is working on that.
It's not our problem.
Oh, I understand, but it's something with the hours to
Can, though.
put into
Yeah, it's
consideration
definitely.
and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do we got on the table now still?
So,
Drew has a,
Well, I would go with Drew on that, like a 8 to 8, 365
So I would
to
make.
start with.
I would make a motion, to amend my first motion to
Yeah.
add
do we
the,
wanna do an amendment to all of them first, or you wanna do an amendment for each one? 'Cause we still have the allowing
'Cause-
So you would need, because his original motion was just to pass this version.
and then I'll do an
right, but
amendment
we
to
wanna
add
make
in
sure that the
extra.
multi-use and all that is,
Right. So
you
I'll
wanna do
say-
amendment for all of them?
Yep, I'll tell you my amendment, and
Okay,
we'll go
all
from
right.
there. So my amendment would be to approve the, first reading with the additions to what Barry had stated, no or not the multi-use.
Mixed use.
Mixed use, hours of operation would be 8 to 8, 365. And then also, the other one was, adding in the verbiage of approval, on 23.11.070 underneath number 1, and then underneath number 4, adding the existing code.
The International Existing Building Code.
What about the testing and,
And then also allowing that, there not be a limit on any testing or cultivation
or
facilities.
just allow those in the
Just
zone?
allow those in
that's-
those zoning.
Although that's not an amendment, because that
That
part's
was in-
That's in the
Okay.
version.
That was in
Good.
there, so.
Same with the,
Right.
same with the mixed use, the cultivation, all that, the two items that Barry changed on the bottom, and then the hours are the only three things that would be.
Yeah.
in there.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Then
so we need a motion, we have a motion to approve, we have a, and Drew's, his amendments are on there, so we need to, have a roll call vote.
I need a second.
Yeah,
Need
do
a
we have
second to that amendment. Yep.
Need a second for the amendment?
I will second that, but I have a little more discussion to go through
Okay.
here.
Yep, I will second that, and, still have some more discussion, go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
And my discussion comes back around to the joint jurisdictional. So if we're landing on 4 dispensaries in the city, that would include the joint jurisdictional.
No, does not.
So last week, the county was holding at 2, or at least that was anticipated, in which we had question of, okay, so if those 2 land in the joint jurisdictional under the county's number,
But we clarified they don't, right? The county has 2, the joint jurisdictional has 2, and the city has 4.
Now, with this version, the joint jurisdiction would have its own 2.
So in theory, there could be 8 in the county.
Total.
If you count city
If-
joining.
If you pass this, yes.
Because the county was concerned that they would have 2 in the jurisdiction, in joint jurisdiction, there'd be 2 there. They were saying, what would happen if somebody in Woolsey wanted to have one? If we don't have some other, so that's why those 2 were added to the county outside.
To the joint. That's why we added them to the joint.
Yeah.
Because that would allow the county then to issue theirs to others outside of the joint.
right,
And I would anticipate that you will see a minor verbiage change there that would say outside of the joint jurisdiction.
the
And there
2
are-
in the joint jurisdictional, who would that be under? Would that be a joint
It would be.
city-county authority,
It
or
will,
what?
no, it falls under the city of Huron in our jurisdiction because as planning and zoning is the city of Huron's jurisdiction for any properties other than ag within the 3-mile joint jurisdictional area. So that means we would manage it, we would administrate it, we would take the fee in, we would send everything to the state, anything within that 3-mile corridor, we would manage, and it would be essentially operated as if it were the city of Huron's.
So like these changes that we're talking about tonight, hours, that would all be the same whatever we eventually set for fees, because we haven't actually,
Right, because we haven't done that ordinance yet.
so that would be the same in the city and the joint, because we would oversee that too.
The joint jurisdictional area does not have any hours of operation in it either. And so
So we would-
if you are making that motion to, it would be for both.
And the same on your map restrictions,
Right.
you need to talk about that too.
Yeah, and yes, because there is a slight difference in that map, don't forget.
Because it's all in one ordinance, so,
Right.
you know, you're
So,
gonna make changes. You're gonna make changes all at once.
So my understanding, to make sure I'm correct in what I had looked through, is that, in the joint jurisdiction, they do not need to follow our 500-foot park rule.
that is the biggest difference, that is correct. And their zoning districts where they have the allowable uses are different than ours. Because we allow medical cannabis establishments in the R7 zone, which is Morningside. Even though that's a residential district, we allow that because of those, there's so much, commercial zones there. And then in the B1, the B2, B3, 5, and then the I2, it's in a joint. So those are the two biggest differences, is where they're allowable, what districts, and then because the joint jurisdiction has heavy highway and limited highway districts and things like that.
So how does that read in this ordinance for joint jurisdictional? It's what's in our packet.
For,
Up to 2 licenses, dispensaries, joint
Right.
jurisdiction, provided time, place, there shall not be a limit.
so that is already
Number of
included in the new,
facilities.
in this version.
And so the 500.
The 500 feet does not exist within the joint jurisdiction references.
And so that's hours of operation, do we want that to be the same?
Yeah, you'd want to be consistent.
So his motion would be just for both.
Right, so I just wanna make sure I could add that
Yeah.
and then say also for joint jurisdictional areas.
But then do we need to do anything about the parks?
I'm recommending that you don't do anything with the parks, you don't change that. Is
It's
my-
not in here.
Yeah,
so you're
since
right.
it's not in there, we felt like, that's up to the county, if they wanna regulate that, they can. But we didn't feel it was necessary for us to regulate.
So, don't take this the wrong way. Please, because I know you poured a lot of time into it, so it fall in, but how's Tucker, have you looked this all over from your legal standpoint and given it the stamp?
I've been advised of it. Yes, I have been receiving the Barry's ordinance here. I essentially work at the request of the commission. If the commission wants me to do anything, look at it, review it, specifics of it, any particular issues, I'd be certainly willing to do that.
And the reason that I ask is because you're mixing a fair amount of different levels of law in this, and pretty new law to the state of South Dakota. Some of it hasn't even been written yet. And you're the one with the degree.
Right.
JD guy, his name, yeah.
No. Well, that's correct, and a lot of these are gonna be issues, they're issues of first impression. It's new policy you're setting forth. But in terms of the timelines, we don't have to do anything. We don't have to do anything.
Right.
But if we wanna have some say in a time, place, manner, we have the right to do that pursuant to state statute, and that's essentially what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
And that's pretty much I was in a meeting with the mayors this week, and that's pretty much what the status of most of our larger cities in the state are feeling the same way. We gotta get something on the books, so that everybody in the meeting knew that nothing's final, because we haven't got our final from the state yet. We don't know when we're gonna get our final rules and regulations from the state. So this all could change, but we, at least we'll have something on the books. And if we have to adjust, based on the state's rules and regulations, we can adjust. We got something instead of redeveloping it again, so, yeah.
I got one more.
Yes, Mr.
I
Roy.
have three clarification questions, but one just got cleared up. So, are we voting on the time, the open and close time, 8 to 8?
Monday through Friday.
We'll vote on an amendment, yes, for the hours of operation, and
Would-
then to add the changes to the planner.
The times would be 8 to 8.
7 days a week.
7 days a week.
And any dispensary is going to be eligible to sell medical and recreational when it comes, or
No,
That's a whole
that's a
different
whole
ballgame.
different dog.
that's not even in this?
Not in this at all.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Any other discussion on this?
When do we do the financial part of it?
So the discussion we had is at our second reading, we would bring the licensing ordinance. And that discussion came in the planning and zoning. Our thought is to follow, kind of be similar with what the county's doing. We'd have $1,000 application fee, and then there'd be a $5,000 permit. And then they still have to pay $5,000 to the state as well. Because if they, say we did 4 of them, or 10 of them, and their names all get in the hat, we have to refund people. So we thought we'd just stay consistent with the fees as the state, add a $1,000 application fee to cover the time for all the requirements in here, and then allow, our licenses to actually be set by resolution, like we do now with most of our fees. Our liquor fees are that way now. Because the state, you're not sure what it means, but it says they'll be indexing license annually. So is that CPI, is that COL? Does that mean there'll be increases every year in license fees? We don't know that, but that way we can look at it every single year as a resolution instead of having to change our ordinance. So that's where we're at in the sense of our group.
So,
And we haven't even written it yet, we're just talking about it.
so to be clear, what happens is that initial application comes in, $1,000 fee for the city, and there's a $5,000 check that then is forwarded with the application to the state. Now, that doesn't happen until they go through the conditional use process here first. And that $1,000 would be in lieu of the $350 permit fee that we normally charge for a conditional use. Okay, so if that is then approved, then that is then forwarded to the state, and if that is then approved by the state, comes back, we say, we call the applicant, and we say, you've been approved, stop down and pick up your permit, and they will pay the city of Huron's $5,000 permit fee. So it's a total of 11,
Yeah.
so everybody's clear.
So we're still researching transfers and all those types of fees as well, so we're not 100% in our resolution.
Is the intent of that then to be split with the county on the joint jurisdiction?
Nope, it will not. It would be the city of Huron's. Because we do all the work. We do all of the notifications. We do all of the inspections. We do all of the publishing and the advertisements for that conditional use. All of that is a cost that is incurred to the city of Huron. And we've talked that through with the Beetle County people, and they have said, well, you guys do all the work, so it would be your permit fee to offset your cost. So that's.
I'm fine with that, I'm just clarifying,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah, and we had to have this very discussion with them, because, again, the county didn't take into consideration anything about this joint jurisdictional area, and it was a mess.
Anything else?
So we have to vote on our amendment and then vote on the original motion.
Pardon me?
We have to vote on our amendment and then vote on the original motion, which
Yeah.
includes the amendment.
So we're gonna vote on the amendment first, and this is Drew's amendments. Okay?
Seconded by Smith. Everybody's good with it?
Yep. A motion and a second by Commissioner Smith. No further discussion, I would assume. Roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Aye.
Weinreich,
Aye.
Bragg,
Aye.
Robish,
Nay.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Okay, now we're voting on the original proposal.
So your original motion with the changes, yeah, with the amendments.
Okay. So now we're voting on the original motion with the changes in it.
With the
Yeah.
hours of operation and the additional changes.
Mary, you want to add what they are?
Okay, so the hours of operation were 8 to 8, Monday through Friday,
Okay.
to include holidays.
Not Monday through Friday.
Or Monday through Sunday, excuse
Yeah,
me.
I was gonna say.
No, Monday through Sunday, pardon me.
Yeah.
We had enough of that.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I
And
said
to
that wrong.
change the wording on 23.11 to approval instead of submission,
Right,
and adding the international existing code.
right.
Those are the three?
Those are the three.
Okay. Does everybody understand what we're voting on now? Okay, and we have a motion already to do it.
We have a motion and a
On the
second.
floor.
Second, so roll call vote, please.
Smith,
Aye.
Weinreich,
Aye.
Bragg,
Aye.
Robish,
Nay.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Okay. Thanks, Pauline and Mary, for all the hard work you're putting in on that, and we're not done putting hard work in on it, I'm afraid. And we'll probably be utilizing Tucker here real soon again,
Yep.
so. Okay, moving on. Departmental items. 8.1, announcement, city offices will be closed and the city commission will not meet on September 6th and observance of the Labor Day holiday. 8.2, I think Commissioner Bragg has got all over that.
Yep, thanks, Mr. Mayor. The solid waste department rubble site will be closed on Saturday, September 4th and Monday, September 6th in observance of the Labor Day holiday. Monday's garbage, recycling, and grass collection will be done on Wednesday, September 8th. Please remember to have your containers out the night before, as drivers will not be rerouted. And just another follow-up reminder that trucks are starting at 6 a.m. during these warmer months, so be sure to always place your container out the night before, as all drivers start routes in different areas. If you have any questions, call 353-8542.
Very good, you have a voice for radio.
You said voice, not face.
I said voice.
Clarification.
Well, that ends our meeting tonight. Now we have a work session on the budget, so